You've seen the viral videos with packed streets in Kyoto. You've seen Shibuya Crossing. So people often message me on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram if you're not. Asking me, is Japan really this crowded? Is this real? Is it even worth going? Let's discuss. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Allison. I have been living in Japan for 6 years and I like to make videos on the internet. A lot of them about tourism in Japan. So question, is it really that crowded? Answer, yes, it is that crowded, but also not. Hear me out. So is it worth going? Is it worth coming to Japan? The answer is that it is subjective, but I sure think it is. So today I'd like to go over the state of overtourism in Japan and how to avoid the crowds while just having a more fun, meaningful trip, because that's what is most important. So first of all, what is causing overtourism in Japan? Let's take a step back to review the current situation really quick. So over time, Japan had slowly been becoming a more popular tourist destination, a pretty stable, steady growth, up until the 2010s when it kind of just exploded in popularity. There's many reasons for this. The government was really pushing for it. There was the cool Japan thing, anime became more popular, the internet. But basically this increased visitors to Japan from 10 million in 2013 to over 30 million in 2019. That's a big change in just 6 years. And then of course everything changed when the pandemic attacked and Japan closed its borders. But then they reopened. And here we are today, where in 2024, Japan had 36 million visitors, making it the highest number ever. They were worried about tourism recovering and boy, did it recover. Now, some people may be thinking, this actually is not that big of a number when you compare it to the top tourist destinations in the world like France, Spain, the US. So why is it a problem? If these countries can do it, why can't Japan? Well, first, the growth happened very, very quickly. The tourist count doubling every few years is just not something the government could keep up with. I don't care what flashy numbers these bureaucrats in the tourism department of the government are throwing out there. Reality is quite different. Basically, no country could keep up with that explosive of a growth because, two, the tourism infrastructure is still not in place to keep up with the rise. This can easily be understood by just looking at the mess that is the Kyoto public transit system, particularly the buses, on which a few routes that go to the big hotspot tourist destinations are just packed with tourists and locals can barely even use the buses. Because this has been a problem for over a decade now. They only just now, last year, introduced a tourist-only bus route, which sounds awesome, and it would be, but I think the frequency is nowhere near enough as what it should be. I've never ridden it. If you have, let me know how it is. So basically what I'm saying is it's still not good. And three, basically everyone who comes to Japan goes to the same handful of spots. There is very, very little diversity in travel here. This is what people refer to as the golden route. So this is Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka, Nara. I'm not saying the whole city of each of these cities is like overwhelmed with tourists. That's not true. We're gonna go over that. But the key tourist destinations in these cities are so crowded. So I just alluded to it, but is all of Japan overcrowded? No. First, one question I get sometimes is, should I feel bad as a tourist by contributing to the problem by visiting Japan in the first place? No. Let's look at the article again. The Japanese government says it wants more tourists and they're aiming for 60 million a year by 2030. That's in 5 years. I know what you're thinking. Whoa, Allison, but these spots are already super crowded. How could Japan possibly sustain 60 million visitors? Well, in these spots it can't, in my opinion, but it is possible because the reality is overtourism is really just focused on a few key areas. Look, me and most people understand why you'd want to visit Fushimi Inari Shrine, why you want to visit Arashiyama, Shibuya Crossing, whatever. And I'm actually not saying that you should not visit these places necessarily, more on that later, but I'd reflect on like what you actually want to get out of your trip. Why are you going to these places? Because if all you want to do is see a shrine with these red torii gates, I've been to a dozen that have basically no tourists at them. You could find them easy, even in Kyoto. If you get out of Tokyo, etc., that's where you're really gonna find some great things. Because like I said, the majority of visitors stick to the golden route. But Japan has 47 prefectures and they are all very lovely, special little places. Because obviously if tourists continue to just stick to this golden route, then not only is the quality of life for local residents going to just continue to decrease, but it's also just gonna be a worse trip for you. Like your overall experience as a tourist, I mean, Think back, I'm sure you've been to many overcrowded tourist destinations and you've thought, wow, this would be so much better if I wasn't shoulder to shoulder with other people. So if you go to more overlooked destinations, you know, you can even still go to towns that are well known for tourism. As long as it's basically not Kyoto and like the central area of Nara, you're gonna have like a much better experience. I mean, you could Google it. There's so many great places in Japan. I mean, just to name a few, I always recommend Kanazawa. This one's becoming more and more popular each year, so go now. Takayama, also really popular. Then you could go to Tohoku, where hardly any tourists go to, but it is really beautiful. There's Aomori, Akita, even Hokkaido outside of the ski slopes. It's really beautiful, especially in summer. I could go on forever. There's so many things. So how do you avoid the crowds? Obviously, the first solution is what I just said, go to some lesser known destinations. But while you are traveling around the country, both in Tokyo, in the countryside, you're gonna be connecting to the internet, which is why I'd like to quickly thank the sponsor of today's video, NordVPN. So I've been loving NordVPN for a while now, but if you're new here, NordVPN is a VPN service that protects both your private and your personal information online. So this means you can browse the internet safely, especially on public Wi-Fi like the kind you're gonna find everywhere in Japan, in airports, cafes, hotels, even the bullet train. Trust me, you will be connecting to the bullet train Wi-Fi. And one of the features that I really love and can be a lifesaver for travelers and people who live abroad like me is that NordVPN lets you change your IP address so it makes it look like you're accessing the internet from a different country. This is perfect for geo-blocked content because many shows and movies are only going to be available on certain countries. Netflix's, Hulu's, and even anime websites like Crunchyroll, for example, are 100% blocked in Japan. You cannot access it unless you have a VPN. So that's where NordVPN comes in to solve this problem, and it's what I use it for a lot. I need to watch my weekly anime. So if this sounds like something you'd benefit from, and trust me, basically everyone can, I highly encourage you to try out NordVPN for yourself risk-free with their 30-day money-back guarantee at my link at nordvpn.com/AllisonInTokyo, where right now you can get a huge discount on a 2-year plan in addition to 4 extra months free. So thank you again to NordVPN for sponsoring today's video. Now let's address the elephant in the room. That is, Allison, are you saying that I shouldn't go to Kyoto, the most famous tourist spot in Japan with countless cultural sites? No, I'm not. Because I know first-time visitors are going to be reluctant if I say don't go to Kyoto. So I'm actually not going to say that. I'm not. You should do what you want. Plan the trip you want. Okay, just understand what you're getting into. What I would suggest instead, and what I think is the most rational solution moving forward for everyone, for tourists, for the government, is to promote this kind of thing, is where instead, say you're planning your trip, you're planning to stay in Kyoto for 4 days, what I would suggest is cut that down to 2, spend another 2 days in a different off the beaten path location. I would ignore me too if I was saying that I don't think you should go to Kyoto on your maybe one and only ever trip to Japan, okay? However, if this is your second trip to Japan or later, maybe you could go somewhere else instead of Kyoto again. But I really promise you that your experience in a less popular but still very cool, very beautiful, historic place in Japan is going to be so much more meaningful for you. You're going to get so much more out of it when you're away from the tourist hordes you're corralled in through the streets of Kyoto. You won't regret it, promise. Please look around, watch videos on YouTube, my channel, other places for some inspiration. Find some place that appeals to you, find some activity, anything, and just build your trip around that. I've said this before, but like the ideal way to plan a trip in my mind, it's like your first trip to Japan is, let's say you start in Tokyo, that's like the bread. Let's say you're gonna end in Kyoto, that's the other bread. In between, you're gonna want like jam. And that's gonna be this off the beaten path location. This is the easiest way to plan an itinerary, in my opinion, if you don't wanna just do it super cookie cutter on the golden route. Because also locals at these places usually really appreciate tourists because they actually really want them and need them for the economy, especially foreign tourists. And you're probably gonna be able to experience something closer to like an idealized image of Japan that you may have in your head from social media. So my second tip to avoiding over-tourism is traveling during off season. So I have a whole video on when to and when not to visit Japan, so go check that out. Seriously, there's so many dates you do not want to be in Japan for. Basically, the most crowded times a year are going to be for fall leaves around November. Then of course, cherry blossom season for obvious reasons. This is like mid-March to early mid-April. If you do want to visit during this time, I understand why. It's fine, but know what you're getting into. Know that the popular cherry blossom spots that come up first on Google are going to be packed. Book your restaurants and hotels in advance. Another quick note is to make sure you avoid coming during Golden Week, New Year, and the Obon holidays. Watch a video for those dates. Don't come during Golden Week if you can help it. If you can't, I understand. Next is exploring beyond the central areas. So like I said, Japan is not actually that overcrowded, and neither is Kyoto, like overall. Say you find yourself in a tourist hotspot like Shibuya Scramble, you feel overwhelmed with all the people, you want something more chill. It's easy, you just need to walk 10 to 15 minutes away. That's it, that's the instructions. Just walk away. Even in like Shinjuku, if you just go one street over, suddenly you can find yourself on a street with no one else on it. There's still gonna be cafes, there's still gonna be stores. It's that easy. Even just go one station away. It's not that hard. I encourage you to do this because if your image of like Tokyo, for example, is limited to downtown Shibuya, downtown Shinjuku, you're gonna have a pretty warped view like what Tokyo really is. I really encourage you to just go on a walk. Next, something to keep in mind that is really easy to forget about is there are weekends and there are like 3-day weekends. There's holidays here. Japanese people do exist here. Weekdays, of course, most people are going to be at work, but on the weekends, you're also going to have to contend with domestic tourists, just local people going to cafes, living their lives. If you do want to go to a really cute cafe you saw online or a really popular tourist hotspot, put some thought into the timing of when you're going. Japanese people love anything that has blown up on social media. There will be a line out the door for months afterwards. That's my warning. So in conclusion, Japan is not overcrowded at all. As a country, at all. It is overcrowded in select areas of things like Kyoto, Tokyo. Personally, I wouldn't say it's actually as overcrowded as some places I've been to, like in Europe, for example. Let me know down below in the comments what you think. Basically, I think it's easy to avoid it if you just do a little bit of pre-planning, a little bit of intentional traveling away. You can have a really great trip. And if you only go to, honestly, these overcrowded spots, you're probably still gonna have a nice trip. Just think about it, see what you can do, you know? Japan is a really great country to travel in. It really is. I really love it. I love living here. I love traveling here. People here are super nice. I really hope that you're able to experience the country a bit beyond what is just, you know, on social media, a bit beyond what is just on these travel documentary shows all the time. So if you found any of these tips helpful, please let me know down below in the comments. Also, please let me know what is your favorite less crowded tourist destination, or let me know what your upcoming travel plans are. And make sure you like the video, subscribe to my channel for more videos about traveling in Japan, my life here, and I'll see you guys back here again soon. Bye.